Hello?
Yep.
Okay.
You got snow there yet?
Yeah, it snowed the other day, like a couple inches. It's going to snow supposedly tonight, and then it's going to stop, and then it's going to snow again, I think Thursday or Friday or something. It froze. It all froze, like, because they didn't really, some places, like some spots, they didn't really get too well, so it's like a little, on the side of the road, it's like little ice blocks, because that's like compacted.
It was 22 below zero this morning here.
Over here,
it's clear, and it's warming up. I guess right now it's probably up to about 5 below zero centigrade. That is.
I never got that down packed. The other metric system for Canada. I know over here it's 18, and that's pretty
32
cold.
Is your freezing point. 0 is our freezing point.
Yeah. I mean, it's been colder than this before. I remember the worst it's been. It was one time. It was, if I remember correctly, it was 14 degrees.
When you get down to 0, you would be probably in the area of between 15 and 20 below here, centigrade. When you're at 0, below 0, period. Anyways, it's cold and preventing me from doing any work. The earth here basically turns to the equivalent of cement.
Yeah.
When it gets to be 15 below. And even a pickaxe, full-fledged pickaxe, or other devices for making holes have absolutely no purpose except dead weight.
Yeah. Oh, it's like that soil just up. I don't know. It's like it's sleeping, right? It's like going into like a hibernation type of.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to find out, like what actually happens, like chemically speaking, in the dirt, and how that's like transferred to like a tree or whatever.
Your voice is dropping again.
Oh, so that would be interesting to find out, like what happens, like chemically speaking, in the dirt, like how that information, when it's cold, how that transferred over to a tree or whatever.
Obviously, because it's not a desert place here. During the year when it's not cold, water is absorbed into the earth, and that makes it fairly easy to shovel. However, the minute it freezes, and in this part of the world, it freezes to 4 or 5 feet below ground, that turns almost to concrete. And until you have heat, you can't dig any place.
I wonder what that means because like animals like moles and stuff, don't they live?
They would normally hibernate. For much of the time, they crawl into a log or something like that and hibernate and come out a couple of times over the winter time. That's about it, just to empty their stomach. And see if anything they put in storage can be eaten, and then they go back to their hibernation, which, of course, is a capability that human beings had as they were evolving, and necessary when you go into space. So part of the memory research that is going on now is how to access the different glands that would initiate a hibernation period, or in some other places, the ability to extract oxygen from water, because you'd be underwater for long periods of time. So mermaids all have gills. And McGill University is specializing in that kind of thing, along with people in Ogdensburg and Ottawa.
What venue do you think they would have to test that out? Because I know in the Olympics you see things like, pole vaulting and things that would be useful for a slave.
Well, they have in the summertime an exercise where 8 women together do exercises underwater and pop up, and I forget what they call that activity, but it's so that they all perform at the same time. Excuse me. But they can spend 30 minutes in the pool, going in and out at approximately a minute or 2 to take a breath and go back down again. So, but of course, the women involved in Freemasonry always signal the fact that they're working on that by wearing pearls, because pearl divers are probably the ones who can stay underwater the longest. They're basically, when they wear pearls, and you see a lot of women on TV wearing pearls, it basically is saying, I'm in on the plan. Now, when you do that, Ogdensburg, Montreal, that area, the most likely places that these people would practice their craft would be the Thousand Islands. Yeah. And that's in the area at the western end, 3/4 of the way in towards Lake Ontario. You have the Thousand Islands, and that gives them the privacy they need. It's basically between Watertown in the U.S. and Ogdensburg. At about the middle of that area, there is a bridge called the Thousand Islands Bridge.
Are the women who
from Kingston at the end? When you break out into Lake Ontario, you're close to Kingston.
I wonder if, like, those people who are actually participating in this type of activity, like the women who are actually the models or whatever, like, do they live in with the regular population? Are they cut off? Is it like a lab type of environment? Like, are they?
Well, I would suggest that the reason they're living there is because someone bought the islands, and they would be relatively expensive to buy, so that would basically give them the privacy that they need. And of course, the border guards are in on it, so they're not going to do anything to expose it. On both sides of the river, border guards are the ones who allow the system's drug peddling to take place and only arrest the freelancers.
And I remember something about, like, with the ships that come in that area too.
Yeah.
The sailors, they have sex with these prostitutes.
Yeah. Well, it's a very handy place, the St. Lawrence Seaway, because of traffic coming there from around the world, and the Grey Nuns in Ogdensburg and Montreal, and even Ottawa, because there's the Ottawa River leading up there, have access to gene pools that would normally not be found in North America, but would come in as sailors, which they don't call seamen by accident.
That's the seamen that they're looking for.
Yeah. And it was always an area in New York State that was maintained as a prison colony for young women above ground in prisons and below ground in caves for those people sent from Europe. People who would have been charged with things like mass murder or serial rape. Cost a lot of money to maintain for, 50 years in jail. So they would, in fact, send them off to North America, and they would be kept in those caves underneath Ogdensburg, preferably, where there is little traffic that stops there compared to, say, Montreal, where there's a lot of activity going on all the time. If you want to do something in secret, Ogdensburg is a better place to unload these people, take them underground. Everybody in Ogdensburg is familiar with the fact that there are caves all over, but there's very little conversation done in public, this activity.
Well, it's just people, I could imagine if anybody in that area tries to talk, they'll probably be silenced pretty quickly. Or
I didn't hear that.
I said I can imagine if people, like somebody tries to talk about it, those caves or whatever, they're probably silenced pretty quickly, or
yeah, well,
intimidated, or usual.
Not much activity. I've spoken to a few prison guards in the area, and some deny knowledge, and others have, because of the Institute, have been more open to discussing what has occurred there.
What do you mean, because of the Institute?
Well, the minute they hear it's from an institute, they then jump to the conclusion that it is government run, and don't mind discussing things they wouldn't do with individuals.
Oh, okay. And they see your old man, so they think you're some official of some kind, or?
Well, they always have believed that that our institute is linked to government in some way or other. First of all, because of the 3 years I spent on Parliament Hill, many people would mistake that to mean that I was officially hired by people on Parliament Hill to go there. They don't grasp the concept of someone who comes regularly on Parliament Hill to complain about thieving politicians. So they hear I've been on Parliament Hill, and they officially sanction my presence by being there. Nobody tells them that they arrested me 10 times, and only the courts could remind the police that the parliamentarians control inside the door, but outside the door on Parliament Hill belongs to the people. And that a single lone protester cannot be considered a demonstration that requires a permit.
So you noticed the activity going on in the media?
There is ongoing activity going on in the media, both in their the clothes they wear, the colors of ties men wear, dresses women wear. Recently, there's been the addition of glasses that black plastic rimmed glasses, and it went on for about a week and a half, and then a complaint was filed in the media against Woody Allen.
Oh, yeah.
So it basically looked like they were setting up for a discussion on Woody Allen, and a whole bunch of people started wearing glasses the way that he does. And sure enough, it happened.
I was wondering, why would they bring that up again from years ago? They're bringing that up, that whole situation.
Well, the activity of rape, and especially the rape of children, is an activity which is genetically inspired, if you will, and socially induced, and makes a lot of money because it's an activity that sells a lot of papers and attracts a lot of viewing audiences. So the media have the most to gain by, first of all, through monasteries genetically engineering people to do that kind of stuff, and secondly, through social engineering, turn it on and off whenever they feel like it. And they need a story to carry in the papers or on TV.
Oh,
not surprising to anybody who's in the business of genetic engineering.
I meant to ask you, I remember a ritual that you mentioned a while back. I think it was involving Jennifer. Something, or I think she could have told me. Something about called the drinker of blood. And I just was doing a random search a little while ago, and there's a story about, and linking it to the 18th dynasty about a guy investigating the murder of Nefertiti. So it's like supposedly it's like a fiction story.
I don't think it was me, because I don't have any memory.
Yeah. No, not that, but this the concept of drinker of blood. But this, and I was saying when I looked up that drinker of blood, it was that story. Somebody wrote a story connecting it to the 18th dynasty, and I think about drinker of blood. That's something that like barbarians did, right?
Well, cannibals always have participated in eating human beings at rituals, and that would include drinking of blood. But of course, all of that is also the story of Christianity.
Yeah,
where Jesus at the Last Supper is telling his apostles that, drink of my blood and eat of my flesh, type of thing. But of course, that's an allegory, because Jesus is not a person.
Yeah.
Jesus is a gene pool.
So when they say, so what do they mean by eating a gene pool and take part of my gene pool? Or?
Well, it basically refers back down to stem cells. If the stem cells of one person are passed on to a matching person, information can be passed back and forth. Adam and Eve is basically the first story in the Bible that says Adam made Eve out of his rib. Well, basically referring to marrow and stem cells. They made a different kind of woman than the pre-Ice Age woman that existed, called Lilith. And Eve, it won't be the last woman, because the last woman has to be the end, not the day before the end. So obviously they're in the process now of eliminating the Eves that they manufactured after the Ice Age and replacing them with a slave, Amen. And that task is, if not completed, darn close to it. And only those living in faraway jungles can escape the activity of the genetic engineers. But not many of them can, since the first thing they do is they establish monasteries in faraway places, in the Amazon, in Africa, whatever, and they pay people to bring in babies whose genetic engineering they can establish along a recipe that they want, and then send them back out into the jungle so that they can mix with the originals that are there. And of course, the minute you mix genetics, the effect of it lasts a minimum of 4 generations. So at least the next 80 years or so, that gene pool is being spread. And then they have to kind of give it a refresher. So they send in new people who've been genetically engineered in labs. Here in Canada, there's no doubt that, the first place was done by the Basque, who came across the ocean and set up a lab in what they called Labrador, a part of Newfoundland. And then they placed those babies into Nova Scotia, and from Nova Scotia into Quebec. And then they took the gang from Nova Scotia and sent them down to New Orleans, called them Cajuns. Eventually moving further into Quebec. When I was a kid, it was common to be told that families in Quebec were averaging 10, 12, 14, sometimes as many as 20 children. Well, I may have believed that the mother of that household was really busy making babies when I was 10 years old, but I have a problem believing that 10 to 20 children is normal for any community, and therefore it must, in fact, include children that are made in labs and then passed on to these families to raise for a fee. In Quebec, the baby bonus paid by the government for children is much higher than anywhere else across Canada.
You know, they made fun of that in the movie, in Monty Python movie.
Yeah.
They show a scene with the Catholic families, and they show one family how it was. They were making fun at the time that the Catholics were really promoting for people to have babies, and it shows one family. This lady just has like 50 children all around. Babies are just falling out of her.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what they were
in
doing.
Reality, children were made in a convent.
Yeah.
And they would put on a story that they came via the front door, people abandoning children at the door. That's why they called them foundlings. They found them in their lobby. But in reality, they were just the babies of nuns who had been either raped by priests willingly,
by priests, wow.
or genetically engineered within the convent itself.
Wow, that's new to me. Raped by priests willingly. Wow.
Yeah, well, they were told that, like Mary, they could become the mothers of God.
I'm thinking, like, wouldn't the thought come across their mind, like, wow, isn't this the same as being on the outside? Some priest is having his way with me?
Well, if you go back to Egypt's 18th dynasty, you had a situation where a harem was created with women, not much different than nuns today. And the harem operated in the same way. A madam either had the priest come in and rape the convent nuns, or the genetic engineer would come in and do it by artificial insemination. Then, of course, they would be declared to be children of Pharaoh. That would give them a high position in court, and everyone on the outside would want to be higher ranked, so they would marry into the family. Because you couldn't become a pharaoh unless you were married to a pharaoh's daughters.
Yeah, of course, people are going to compete or whatever to try to get to that position. I guess the point where it wasn't just royalty doing this, and it became like, the middle class kind of coming into that process was like in Europe when they started that whole.
Well, the more you leave monarchies behind as cosmetic leaders and begin the concept of democracy ruled by the people, then you have to transfer what you used to do only to royals down into the average household. So a lot of people who would have been nuns in monasteries were told to go out and meet somebody who would have been a priest and together create the visuals of outside marriage between two people who are little or not religious, and keep the project going within everyday laity. We don't call it laying for nothing. Like the original lab called Himalaya, Himalayan mountains, the genetic engineer making babies for distribution towards Southeast Asia and into Mongolia. The smart ones were sent south, and the wild ones were sent north, Mongolia. For people like Attila the Hun, basically telling you that he came from the Phoenician types, the ones who were in charge of communications like AT&T, and Huns like the nuns.
And the Phoenicians seem like the perfect, culprit to unspread.
Well, they had the ship to travel all over the world.
Yeah, and they could test out and put one gene pool in one area, another gene pool in another area.
Yeah.
So I see, and then I guess one of the methods they use to track, I guess, task orientation would be like people's middle names. I know. I used to watch cartoons and movies and stuff. The person would always say, to describe a task that they do, they would say, "That's my middle name."
Mm-hmm.
Or, acting is my middle name. So they're kind of telling you, this is who I am. This is my task. Look at my middle name. This is what. When
they give you a task, they describe your journey as being embedded in a gene pool somewhere else. Embedded suggests, of course, in bed. Making a new gene pool requires that you bring outsiders from a different gene pool and intermarry with the ones you want to change. Some you change and others you kill through war, pestilence, famine, and disease.
I see that, like with Syria. Now I see, on the news, they're saying that the UN is actually trying to profit from this. They're trying to get $65 million or something like that, or $6.5 million from what's going on in Syria.
Well, too many people know too many things in Syria, and their shelf life has expired.
And they're doing the same thing in Africa, Central Africa.
They kill them off.
Cleansing, ethnic cleansing of...
And it's about to happen to the USA, so...
Yeah.
It's not things that happen just somewhere else. Every gene pool has a task. And once that task has been accomplished, their shelf life expires, and they have to figure out ways to get rid of them. You know, the 2 cities in Japan had more genetically engineered people whose background was samurai, and those 2 cities became the targets for nuclear bombs in World War II. So if you can't kill them in war, you can kill them by nuclear leaks, by disease of all kinds, by famine, by pests, so that you kind of hide what's occurring because they're dying for different reasons, but all basically for the same purpose. Get rid of this gang and replace them with this gang. We know that they're saying that the next gang is tan, because all of these countries around the Himalayas have Pakistan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan. So obviously they're working towards making a final product, or a next product will be kind of light brown in color. Therefore, that requires Hindu, who are dark brown, made from the black African, and then change that color to mixing it with a pink gene pool and a red gene pool, and somewhere in there you'll get tan. A little bit of orange, you know.
As it's speaking of tan, today I saw on Reuters they said that there was first they said it was a 6.9 earthquake in Hotan, China, and then they brought it down to 6.8.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed recently there's been a lot of earthquakes in China. I guess maybe they're gonna get rid of whatever gene pool there, because they have some old DNA there. I see.
Yeah. Obviously, it was the major test, because yellow is the children of the corn. The corn cob shows a lot of people, but only one cob. So they're all thinking alike, as opposed to a pea, as in the peace groups that come out of Christianity. The pea basically limits it to 5 to 12, 15 peas in a pod. And then you have the snow pea, which is from the north, which basically is more along the lines of 3 to 5 or 6. But the eventual pea that they want, the eventual slave, will be one pea in one pod. And the relationship, of course, to corn is they come from an acorn. An oak tree produces a pod for one.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's the model. Acorn. Huh. Interesting. Oh, but before I forget, I got a letter. It was addressed to Jennifer. An email. Somebody said that they had some type of problem, and I don't
send it by fax.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna have. I just yeah, all right, I'll send it. I gotta figure out. I guess I gotta print it. But yeah, have you got any contact with people? Some people have contacted me. Person, they said they have a hard time trying to get in contact with you.
Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch of people who call and don't leave a message
After you tell them to.
Yeah. And I never call any of those numbers back. And if they leave a message, I might call them back or not, depending on what the message is. A lot of people just want to argue, and they're probably the people who are trying to identify where Jennifer is so that they can send out their assassination team.
Well, maybe that could be what this person is in this email is doing.
Yeah.
Because I read the email and it just sounded out there.
I have no conversations with people that make no sense.
I thought in my mind that they're just warped, they're just confused. I don't know if it's intentional, they're doing this to get some type of, to gauge something, but I don't know.
Well, most of them I've discovered over time were calling from monasteries. They're assigned a task to basically try to discourage people from anything real. Belief in things that make no sense is all they want to talk about.
One guy, Glenn, I don't know if he was joking. He could have been serious, but he actually he used to write long essays to me, and I couldn't keep up with it. And I read the first paragraph, and he actually was really serious about wearing a tinfoil hat. Glenn, in this line of work, you meet some people who are out there, Glenn.
Yeah. If they really care and want to help, chicken feed, cat food, goat food, that's all. We're not looking to make any money, but we're having to spend all our money on feed for animals. So you can just tell them to use their credit card and call the feed store. That is more helpful than anything else. Eventually, the 13 people who have knowledge beyond the average and who believe that they are destined for the team of people that will kickstart a new universe, they'll know what they have to do.
Oh, I've been meaning, this question's been on my mind for a while because I heard you bring it up. Because when I first was understanding this concept of the fifth dimension and, getting there, I first understood it was that, death was obligatory to going there, but I remember in the talk you mentioned something about people being assisted.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? I that's new to me.
Well, at one stage of the game, creation will review those people who have shown an interest in coming for that purpose, and will make to a group of people numbered, from what I've been told, 30, and from that 30 will come the 13, and to make sure that their coming forward does not depend on them having funds. Creation will make the funds necessary so that money doesn't become a block to participating. And my understanding is that each one would be given the equivalent of $100,000 with no strings attached, and then let them deal with the issue as they please. But 13 will come at least from that gang. I have basically attempted to bring 60 people so that the 30 would become obvious along the way, and from the 30, 13 would be the major players. If you're going to move from this universe, which is a 4-dimensional universe, and you're going to bring with you all of the people since the Ice Age who have not participated in criminal controlling activities on behalf of Creator God, those people are sitting at the door waiting to leave this universe and enter the next. And a team of 13 needs to be brought forward so that there is the equivalent of a political cabinet. One person's expertise in, say, the medical profession would be required. Another person with expertise in farming would be required, and so on. So 13 members of a cabinet, all equal, would be required. And creation will take care of security, and there will be a cosmetic leadership, like a governor general, queen, king, whatever you want to call it, who's just representative of the voice of the people. And another person responsible for the court, not the decisions of the court, but just the scheduling of those people going on trial, and the assistance in deciding what is an appropriate penalty or recourse for the people who have been put on through the trial process. Some will be given an opportunity, as the cell has been given, to cleanse their record, if you will, by doing things that will assist creation in its mandate to create a new universe from these people who are not found guilty without recourse. If you can understand that. The simplest way to say is that this universe has run its course. And a new universe parallel to this one is waiting for the arrival of the team that didn't create the problems that exist here. You wouldn't want to have the best people who could create a think tank, cabinet, whatever you want to call it, to be prevented from stepping forward because they're poor. Therefore, all of them would be put on an equal level to make sure that money is not the problem. When they step forward, will basically determine what their role is.
Now, you know, this could happen in like what period of time would this like take place, and would it take place?
Well,
within
my understanding is that all of it has to occur before 2062. But that doesn't mean it has to wait for 2062. The only one who can make the decision is creation. And what facts are still missing for creation to say, okay, we won't prevent what they're doing, which will cause mass casualties, catastrophic casualties around the world. In the sense that creation has prevented that kind of activity from happening in the past and has let some of that activity happen in the past. It doesn't create the activity, it makes a decision on whether or not to interfere with the decision-making process of the people who claim to own and control the world today. So, for all intents and purposes, the answer to your question is, it's from now until 2062. That's 48 years. Remaining. When the decision was made to make it happen, to allow it to happen, was in 1992. In 2008 was set as the opening of the window.
this information was known to you, but was it known to, I guess you made it known to the system too, right?
Well, by simply speaking, there are so many people who listen in on the telephone lines, starting with Ma Bell, who's probably got every recording ever made since the first telephone call, knows basically everything because of their spying activities. And then there are the governmental departments who spy as well. I'm told that there is approximately 2,000 systems set up to spy on every telephone. Therefore, with 2,000 people knowing everything that's been said on the telephone, and especially concentrating on those people who want to hear conversations such as this one, you can be certain they, in the control side of things, all know. All of them are doing whatever they can to create roadblocks in our existence. Many of them go under the name of political administrative assistants. Many others go under the name of the insurance industry of the world. Nobody knows more about individuals than the people who have things they want to protect than insurance companies. Religion comes the closest, but insurance knows more than priests.
They have people's information.
They control the gambling world because insurance is just another means of gambling. The Kurds and the Basque are very well known for their interest in gambling.
The Chinese, too, aren't they well known for their interest?
Yeah. Underground. It's all based on the theory of probabilities. If you understand the mathematical basis of probabilities when you have a population of a certain size and everything, you can set yourself up in a no-loss position by, first of all, declaring that certain things are God-made and other things are man-made. And all the God-made problems that exist, insurance doesn't pay. Because they're the ones making it happen. They're not going to pay you for the things they made happen. Unless, of course, they're paying you to go kill somebody. Then that person leaves an insurance policy that pays you. And gambling says, you put money on the table, but the first 15% is taken away, and the payout is only of the 85%. That you can never lose. It's not your money that you're putting up, and you can only win the pot. And you've already taken out your 15%. That's what insurance companies do. Look at TV and how many commercials today exist on TV that are linked to insurance.
Oh, man, I was just about to bring that up to you. Like, it's amazing how many times an insurance commercial comes on.
Yeah. They're the only ones who can afford it.
And then you see Obama promoting this insurance thing, health insurance. And
when you get an election, who can advertise but the ones who've been given the money to advertise? That's why billionaires control the media. Whether the billionaire is called a government or an individual, it doesn't matter. They've obtained their funds out of a Ponzi scheme for all intents and purposes, lying to the people about the possibilities of becoming wealthy and protected. They scam the entire resource of the world's finance, then control the media. Why do people get into politics? It's basically in order to get named to a position on a board that controls a media empire.
what was that whole thing with does that have the whole thing with Shirley Temple? Was that had to do with that temple and that was moved, the thing that was moved from place to place around the world, and now it's in New York?
Temple treasure.
Yeah. I was thinking.
Religion is just a media. A collector taxes by means which are not governmental. Government forces you to pay as much as it can, then lets you throw in funds of your own by trying to buy your way into the next dimension, or quote-unquote heaven, or gives you means by which you may gamble through lotteries in order to obtain the kind of funds that you believe will set you free. But all three of them are taxes. Some are voluntary, others are not. In any event, my friend, it is time for me to go and feed the animals.
You have fun feeding those animals, Glenn?
Not when it's this cold, but it has to be done.
Yeah. All right.
Talk to you again.
Talk more, but is there another time I can call? Or?
It's always...
like insurance company?
Trial and error.
Gambling?
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
You take a chance. I don't make appointments for any specific time because that only allows the people who wish us harm to take advantage of that.
Yeah. All right.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye.